What's up, guys? We are back with chapter 2 of Failing Forward here, and this chapter talks about redefining failure and success and how you view it in your own mind and how you can help yourself fail forward and keep moving after mistakes and errors. It first talks about a Major League Baseball player in 1999. His name is Tony Gwynn of the San Diego Padres. Apparently this author was a fan of him, and he was about to hit his 3,000th hit. But then it kind of just gave stats of, how many times he struck out. And it said he had struck out 5,113 times in his professional career. And if he only struck out, that would be 8 seasons of baseball or 1,278 games of strikeouts in his career. But he hit his 3,000th hit, which only, I think he said, 21 baseball players had done at the time, which is a pretty big deal. So obviously he struck out a whole bunch, and if he could look at each strikeout as a failure, but he didn't, and he went on to succeed very high in baseball. So obviously, if we take every single mistake that we make and we make it a bigger deal than what it has to be, it's harder to see the bigger picture. You can't just narrow it in on every single at-bat. Otherwise, you're going to get really, really down on yourself. But they talk a lot. That was just kind of the introduction to the chapter. But they talk a lot about failure, what failure isn't, and what you can't think of failure. So the first one is people think failure is avoidable. It is not. If you're trying to achieve something, you are going to fail multiple times at it. It says you will learn lessons. There are no mistakes, only lessons. A lesson is repeated until it is learned. If you don't learn the easy lessons, they get harder. Pain is one way the universe gets your attention. You'll know you've learned a lesson when your actions change. So this is basically, we go through life and we do things, and it's either going to be a good thing or a bad thing. The bad things, it's a mistake. We need to learn from it, and then we'll get better at it. And now we can progress from there. If we don't learn from it, more than likely we're going to repeat that mistake, and then we have another chance of learning from it. And if we don't learn from it, we'll repeat it, and we'll have another chance of learning from it, right? And we just got to keep trying, and every time we make a mistake, let's look at and try to learn from it rather than keep repeating our mistakes and failing over and over and over. People think failure is an event. It is not. Knowing your purpose in life, growing to reach your potential, and then sowing seeds that benefit from others. So he wrote a book about what success is, and basically he was saying success is a journey. He said failing is also a journey. Failure works the same way. It is not some place you arrive, just as success is not an event. Neither is failure. It's how you deal with life along the way. No one can conclude that he has failed until he breathes his last breath. Until then, he's still in the process and the jury is still out. So failure is not something that is this be-all, says-all thing. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to make errors, we move on, we learn from it. People think failure is objective. It is not. So failure is not set in stone as this one thing. Someone tells you, oh, you're a failure because of this. No, it is very subjective and it's up to you. Failure doesn't need to be, this event happens, I'm done, I'm a failure. No, that event can happen and you can just move past it, learn from it, and try again. So failure is in your mind. It's very subjective to each person. And if you have, a good look on failure, you can look at it and be like, no, this isn't failure, this is a mistake, I can keep going from there. People think failure is the enemy. It is not. Failure is how you learn. That's basically what he talks about. This is how you make mistakes, you move forward, you learn, now you're better from it. So failure is not the enemy. You have to fail to learn. People think failure is irreversible. It is not. They say like a weird analogy with this one. It doesn't matter how much milk you spill as long as you don't lose your cow. In other words, mistakes are not irreversible. Keep everything in perspective. So obviously a mistake of spilling your milk is a massive deal, but if you have a cow, it's not that big of a deal. You can just go get some more milk. So that was kind of a funny analogy, I thought. People think failure is a stigma. It is not. Mistakes are not permanent markers. I love the perspective of late Senator Sam Ervin Jr., who remarked, defeat may serve as well as victory to shake the soul and let the glory out. That's the way we need to look at failure. When you make mistakes, don't let them get you down, and don't let yourself think of them as a stigma. Make each failure a step to success. So we can't let failure basically get us down and think we're just going to fail over and over and over, and that's going to be the stigma of our life. We fail, we pick ourselves back up, we move on. People think failure is final. It is not. Even what may appear to be a huge failure doesn't need to keep you from achieving. And then they talk about this guy high up in a Coke company. Apparently, Pepsi was beating Coke in sales for a while, and Coke's stock was kind of going down. And a guy named Sergio Zim, he introduced this thing called New Coke. And apparently they changed the formula a little bit of Coke, and it was like an epic failure that cost the company $100 million. And that guy ended up being fired over it. But years later, when asked if the venture was a mistake, Zim answers, "No, categorically a failure? No. A blunder, a misstep, a bust, or another word between bust and something else," he replies. "Now, if you say to me this strategy you guys embarked on didn't work," he'll admit it. Yeah, absolutely it didn't work. But the totality of the actions ended up being a positive. Ultimately, the return of Coca-Cola Classic made the company stronger. Zim's assessment was confirmed by Robert Giosso, the late chairman and chief executive of Coca-Cola. He rehired Zim at Coca-Cola in '93 and said, "Judge the results. We get paid to produce results. We don't get paid to be right." So at the end of the day, like, if you just produce results, you don't have to be right 100% of the time. You keep moving forward, you look for the better results, and you go get it, right? So a $100 million mistake lost the guy his job, right? But he still doesn't even look at that as a mistake. It's just miscalculation. It's just an error that they made. They moved past it, and they kept going, okay? It's all in how you look at it. He then goes to talk about the guy who invented Chick-fil-A. Apparently he started a restaurant with his brother. That restaurant was doing really, really well. They opened up another location, and then his brother that he started the restaurant with and another one of his brothers were on a flight to Chattanooga, Tennessee, apparently, and that flight crashed and they both died, which is obviously a huge hit to him. Both of his brothers died, and also his business partner. And so he ended up continuing it by himself, and then he opened up another restaurant, so he's got 2 restaurants now. One of them burned down, which is a pretty big hit. And then he also got sick and was like hospitalized and had to have a couple surgeries. During his surgeries, he came up with the Chick-fil-A sandwich. And so instead of being down on himself, oh, I can't work at my restaurant right now, and he's probably losing some money, he just decided, hey, I'm going to look at the next idea, and he came up with the Chick-fil-A sandwich. Now Chick-fil-A obviously is like a $1 billion company, so it obviously worked out all right for him. So, but that's just perseverance and not letting himself get down on himself, and every setback he just continues to work forward and try to achieve something. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I plan on doing this for all the chapters in this book. I got some other cool videos on my YouTube channel if you want to go check those out. So I appreciate it, guys.